Are we live? Are we live? I can't tell. Let me see. Yep, we're live. Well, I'm live because ain't nobody here yet. It's Monday, so nobody really knows that I'm going live right now. Hopefully, you guys get the notification. But we got some breaking news. We got breaking news, everybody. So, film producer and radical left wing activist Rob Reiner and his wife were both found dead in their California homes. I believe they lived in a California home. I believe they lived in Los Angeles. And I thought this was an interesting enough story to go live and talk about because this situation exemplifies something that we on the right as conservatives have been saying for a very, very long time. And the media establishment has been trying to kind of flip it around because we've been saying for a long time these liberals are violent people. There's a lot of violence on the left. They seem to think that violence is part of normal political discourse, and it is not. But when you have people that are constantly, critical of the president, and their criticisms are based in lies and calls for violence, and they're just full of hate, what happens is that hateful spirit starts to infiltrate into your home. It starts to become a part of your life. Like you start to live in that hate. And I see this happening a lot on the left where they're so hateful to conservatives and people on the right that eventually that hate starts to deflect back onto them, and then they become hateful to each other. We even have a saying for it, right? It's called the left eating itself. And we've seen that a lot with the cancel culture and all that, right? And here we have a situation where a huge left-wing activist, famous movie producer, Rob Reiner, and his wife found stabbed to death in their own home. And I'm surprised, honestly, that the fake news media has not tried to spin this and make it seem like it was some sort of right-wing violence that led to this, like some radical right-wingers ran up in their house and stabbed them to death because they didn't like what they were saying about Trump. No, that's not what happened at all. And apparently, according to news reports, what actually took place was Rob Reiner and his 32-year-old son basically got into a fight, and the son ended up killing both his mother and his father. And this doesn't surprise me. At first, they were trying to say that the son was trans and whatnot, but I've seen pictures of the son. I don't think he's trans. He might be gay, but I don't think he's trans. But it's a bit ironic because, again, these people, when it comes to their political rhetoric, all they preach is hate, and all they do is call for violence. Now, there's several, you can find several clips on the internet of Rob Reiner talking about Trump and talking bad about conservatives and pushing the whole, the racist right wing and white nationalist narrative, every mainstream media talking point that you can think of. But the irony is, with all the hateful rhetoric that this guy was on, in the media spewing, it's ironic that that hate found itself in his house with him and his wife and ended up taking his own life by way of his son. And the thing about these liberals is they are screwed in the head. Liberal men are not men. Their women are the men. And in some cases, it's quite literal. Like Barack Obama and Michelle Obama, Chuck Schumer and his husband wife, the president of France and his husband wife, right? These liberal men are not men. They're weak, spineless cowards, and they lack the intellectual capability to have a conversation. So they usually almost always resort to hateful rhetoric and, in a lot of cases, violence. And they raise their kids up, and they teach their kids that feminism is great, men and women are equal, and they essentially effeminize their sons. Some of them to the point where their sons want to become women, want to become their daughters now. And what they don't realize is teaching their sons to be overly emotional and have the emotionality of a woman is a dangerous combination, because when you mix that feminine emotionality with natural male aggression, you get violence, fatal, deadly violence at the end. You ever wonder why so many of these mass shooters are trans? Because these are grown men with innate male aggression, but they're taught to have feminine emotionality. So they get overly emotional, and those emotions morph into male. They're expressed through male aggression, and it turns into violence. And the transgender mass shooters aren't the only ones. There's plenty of videos. There's one video that caught my attention, and this is an old video from years ago. This trans dude, he's in the store. There's two other guys in the store, and one of the guys must have called him sir or something. And this trans got mad, went out to his car, grabbed the fireman's axe, came in, and chopped both of them up. Now, they didn't die, but their wounds were pretty bad. We've also seen the videos where the conservatives would be doing man on the street interviews at college campuses and so on. And then it's always some trans coming, tearing up their signs, trying to grab their microphones, trying to fight them. But these are all liberal raised males. So even for the liberal males that aren't trans and don't go all the way and turn into sissies, they still have that feminine emotionality, because they're taught that feminism is great. They're taught to be in touch with their feminine side. They're basically raised up to be bitches, to be male bitches. But for some of these men, their natural male instinct fights against that. So they have this internal struggle that leads them to have drug habits, to have mental health issues, and so on. And given the right circumstances, they can become violent, and they do become deadly. And this is exactly what happened to Rob Reiner and his wife. They raised their son up to be a 32-year-old male bitch. First of all, what is your 32-year-old son doing in your house fighting with you in the first place? Why is he not in his own house watching over his wife and kids? You see what I'm saying? So just the fact that homie was even there and able to have a confrontation with his dad speaks volumes, because he was taught to be weak. He was raised to be weak. And unfortunately, Rob Reiner and his wife, who raised this weak individual that they call a son, they paid the price for their bad parenting. And if you don't believe me when I say liberals are horrible parents, they teach their sons to be bitches. They teach their daughters that they can compete with men. And the way they run their household is based on the happy wife, happy life dynamic, where the man kind of stays quiet and takes a back corner, and the wife runs everything and makes all the decisions, and basically she wears the pants. And that is toxic, because it goes against human nature. So what you see on the left is these masculinized females and these effeminized males. Right, DC Legendary. It's the party of inversion. It's the party of inversion, and they invert reality. And when that inverted reality comes back to bite them in the ass, a lot of times it ends with violence. Like, how about Nancy Pelosi's husband? Another liberal couple, right? Nancy Pelosi, she's been in the Senate for God knows how long, for 1,000 years. Her husband is another one of those liberal white cucks that, pretty much lives off his wife, and he's a homosexual. So that means he got some sugar in his tank, and he hired a gay male prostitute. And of course, this gay male prostitute, being connected to Paul Pelosi, I believe that's his name, or that might be the son's name, being connected to the Pelosi's, it's quite safe to assume that he was a liberal too. And guess what happened? He ended up attacking Nancy Pelosi's husband with a freaking hammer. Because these people are nut jobs. They're all crazy, all of them. And honestly, I'm curious to know what Rob Reiner had to say when Charlie Kirk got killed. Are you guys want to know? You guys want to know? Let me see if I can find it. Let me see if I can find it because now I'm curious to know. Well, before we get into that, Donald Trump actually made a statement about Rob Reiner's death, and it wasn't very kind at all. But I'll let you guys hear it while I look for that. Hold on, I got to put it in my headphones. While I look for that for Rob Reiner's reaction to Charlie Kirk's murder. So let me get my headphones on so I can hear what's happening. And I'll hit play.
We will continue to check in with Fox 11 and their reporting in Los Angeles on the death there of Rob Reiner and his wife. President Trump putting it out earlier today on his Truth Social, talking about the death of Rob Reiner and his wife, saying a very sad thing happened last night in Hollywood. Rob Reiner, a tortured and struggling but once very talented movie director and comedy star, has passed away together with his wife, Michelle, reportedly due to the anger he caused others through his massive, unyielding, and incurable affliction with a mind crippling disease known as Trump derangement syndrome, sometimes referred to as TDS. He was known to have driven people crazy by his raging obsession of President Donald J. Trump, with his obvious paranoia reaching new heights as the Trump administration surpassed all goals and expectations of greatness. And with the golden age of America upon us, perhaps like never before, may Rob and Michelle rest in peace there. So that was a statement from President Trump. As you could imagine, it is not going over well in political.
Hold on. I don't know why I keep skipping like that. Let me see. Maybe if I stop the screen share and start it up again, maybe it won't do that anymore. All right.
Circles right now. Thomas Massey, Representative Thomas Massey, putting this out, saying, regardless of how you felt about Rob Reiner, this is inappropriate and disrespectful discourse about a man who was just brutally murdered. I guess my elected GOP colleagues, the VP, and the White House staff will just ignore it because they're afraid. I challenge anyone to defend it. And then some other reaction as well from Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, saying Rob Reiner and his wife were tragically killed at the hands of their own son, who reportedly had drug addiction and other issues, and their remaining children are left in serious mourning and heartbreak. This is a family tragedy, not about politics or political enemies. Many families deal with a family member with drug addiction and mental health issues. It's incredibly difficult and should be met with empathy, especially when it ends in murder. We do have some other reaction as well from Representative Lofgren, saying Rob Reiner was a beloved Californian who always used his platform to make the world better. Donald Trump making light of him and his wife's murderers is a new low for this petty, hateful man. His party needs to condemn this. So that is the
So Donald Trump basically has little to no mercy for this man, and I don't blame him because this man spent his entire life, the last 10 years, saying all kinds of crazy, telling helping spread all the lies about Trump. So I wouldn't be too quick to, you know, have sympathy and empathy for him. But the man is dead, and it is something that's worth noting. Now, I was able to find, wouldn't you know, I was actually able to find a clip of Rob Reiner on Piers Morgan reacting to Charlie Kirk's death. So it's a 3-minute video, and I don't know who this guy is talking in the beginning. I think that's one of the dudes one of the small hats that took over Charlie Kirk's show. So I'll fast forward through that and see what Rob Reiner actually said. So we'll take a look at that real quick. We need more fighters.
Fighters like Nate Morris, the pro-Trump conservative for U.S. Senate.
And that's exactly what brought me to
commercials.
Kentucky, to endorse Nate Morris. We're behind you.
You're a successful business guy, newcomer into politics, really strong.
Nate Morris stands with President Trump.
Yeah.
I felt like what his wife said at the service at the memorial they had was exactly right.
There was another utter tragedy last night. I don't know what to make of it. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. But Rob Reiner, legendary Rob Reiner, I mean, meathead from All in the Family and really known as director.
I think
he and his wife were murdered. Filmmaker Rob Reiner and his wife Michelle were close. Reiner's Brentwood home.
Come on, Dave Jubin.
All right.
Okay, let's get back to. That's what I want to see. I want to see Dave Jubin.
You first heard about the murder of Charlie Kirk. What was your immediate gut reaction to it?
Well, horror, absolute horror. And I unfortunately saw the video of it, and it's beyond belief what happened to him, and that should never happen to anybody. I don't care what your political beliefs are. That's not acceptable. That's not a solution to solving problems. And I felt like what his wife said at the service at the memorial they had was exactly right. And totally, I believe, I'm Jewish, but I believe in the teachings of Jesus, and I believe in doing to others, and I believe in forgiveness. And what she said to me was beautiful.
Yeah, and I think that's just.
Well, that was commendable. That was actually commendable, because most of the people on the left did not have that reaction to Charlie Kirk's death. So I got to give Rob his credit. I got to give him his credit. Now, this is the Rob Reiner that we've all known for the last 10 years. So let's have a look-see at this one.
You have a complete and utter lying buffoon. I mean, I'm going to tell you the truth. He's a fraud. He lies. He cheats people. Everything that comes out of his mouth virtually is a lie. And he's a con man. And if you look at what he's done with his career and how he's tricked people into things, it's abhorrent. I never liked George W. Bush.
Such strong statements, not one single example of Trump conning anybody or tricking anybody. Remember that. But this has been the mantra of the left the entire time.
Policies, but I didn't hate the guy. I hate this man. I've never hated a politician. I can't not hate somebody who bilks innocent people out of money, life savings. And we've seen it. With that Trump University, he took people's money, $35,000, wiped these people out, and is being sued for it. He steals money from charities. I'm not making this stuff up. You have
Actually, he kind of is making it up, because the $35,000 thing with the Trump University, I believe that was with a contractor that did not stick to the blueprints and breached the contract and didn't get paid. And the contractor sued Trump and actually lost in court. Now, again, these are the lies that the left likes to push. And Rob Reiner was front and center in helping to push those lies. So are you surprised that Trump reacted the way that he reacted? I don't think so. Let me see what Rob Reiner said after Trump's assassination attempt. How about that? Rob Reiner, Trump assassination attempt. Let's see what Rob Reiner says. Let me see if I can find something on that. All that's on YouTube is the current stuff. All we're seeing is the Rob Reiner stuff. Trump blames Rob Reiner's assassination on Trump derangement syndrome. Yeah. Yeah, because these people are deranged. They're crazy. Let me see. Rob Reiner reaction to Trump assassination attempt. Let's see if we can find that. Damn, they got the algorithms queued up, boy, because everything is today. And of course, the Democrats are going crazy on Trump for saying what he said about Rob Reiner. But he said what he said. You know, when Rob Reiner was here, Rob Reiner said what he said. So Trump said what he said. So it is what it is. Here's an interesting clip. Now, I can't find anything on what Rob Reiner had to say about Trump's assassination attempt. Maybe he didn't say anything, or maybe they scrubbed it from the internet. But I did find a 16-minute video of Nick Reiner, who is now named the suspect in Rob Reiner and his wife's murders. And they did a joint interview on a show called Tough Love. And I think this is probably worth noting. So let me click that and get that into my history and see if I can pull it up here. And maybe we can have a look-see. Yeah, that's the son. He looks like a cuck.
What was the toughest for you? What do you think, Nick?
It wasn't very tough. I mean, it was pretty nice experience for me. I don't really think it was like tough at all.
Really?
I mean, of course it was a little bit, but
I mean, we did get into fights over things, but ultimately it forced us to make the film better. I mean, we get into issues, and I would see, the whole process for me, I can just speak for myself. It did make me understand him a lot more, and I think it made me a better father. Hopefully it did. I don't know, but I think that, and you'll see it in the film. What happens is, your kid, if your kid is going through rough times, the parent your main job is to keep your child safe. So I would do anything. I felt that a lot.
I don't know if y'all can see it, but you see the way the son keeps like looking around and twitching, like he's on something right now. Like you can clearly look at that dude and see something's wrong with him. I don't know if y'all can see it, but I can see it because my older brother sold dope most of our lives, and I've been around dope fiends a lot, and I see how they act and how they behave, and that's some dope fiend behavior. But he's trying to be cool right now.
So I would do anything that, as we say in the film, anybody with a desk and a diploma, I would listen to them, and the whole idea of tough love and you have to be a certain way. And it's not my nature. It's not the way I am built, but I went and did that, and I think that
boy's geeking.
At the end of the day, I know my child better than an expert does. And I probably should have trusted my own instinct. And that's one of the things I did learn about the whole experience.
I think the bonding came not from the story itself, but from the fact that we were working on a movie together, and I could see him in I would think, in the form that he could express himself the best, which is making movies, because he has so much experience. And so seeing that sort of turned me around to be like, okay, I should probably...
No, sorry, I'm responding.
I should probably shut up and listen to him, because he knows a lot more about this. He knows I don't know anything, so I'll learn whatever he has to teach me.
I just think that's such a fascinating thing to say, that like your father, who you would always want to be at his best as your father, may be a type of person who's at his best when he's making movies, and that makes him more understandable or relatable as a father to you, which is so fascinating to me.
Yeah, that it really clicked for me, because we didn't bond a lot as a kid. Like, he really liked baseball, I like basketball, and he could watch that with my brother, but baseball. But I just, when I saw him do that, and it was something that I'm interested in, I was like, wow, like he really knows a lot, and like it made me feel closer to him and be like, yeah.
You're like, wow, my dad's Rob Reiner.
I never had thought about it, and then
it didn't cross your mind, right?
Never.
No.
Never watched A Few Good Men. Didn't see that one.
I don't know if you guys caught that, but what that dude just said, what the son just said, actually caught my attention. He had issues from the time he was a little kid. because he saw his dad bonding with his brother more than his dad bonded with him. And what happened when the murder happened was probably all of that childhood trauma and pent up rage. Because remember, these are spoiled little rich Hollywood kids. So the problems they had growing up are not the problems that people like us, like average folks like us, would have had growing up. Their problems were more emotional based because they had everything else financially and physically. You know what I'm saying? So the issue that would cause them to lose their minds and have mental health issues would have more to do with their interactions with their parents more than for most of us. You know, we hustle hard and we try to make as much money as we can, and we feel lost when we ain't got no way to make no money because we're used to growing up with no money and we don't want our kids to live like that, right? So that's our trauma. So as far as like emotional bonding and all that shit, like that comes second. Survival comes first. But for them, survival wasn't the issue because they had a cushy life. They had everything they needed financially. So what they were missing was that bond with their parents. And because, you know, Nick Reiner, the son, liked basketball and the father liked baseball and the brother liked baseball, well, the father and the brother had more of a bond. That's what I got from that one comment. But yeah, that boy's geeking though. He's on some shit.
No, but it's interesting that Nick would talk about it in that way because, yeah, we did share that experience, but you know, even though I've had a lot of experience making movies, you know, and I said this to him many, many times that he was the heart and soul of the film. So when it came to making the film deeper and better, I would have to really defer to him. I mean, even though I have had all this experience in making films, the core of this film, I really had to look to him. I relied on him for giving it the honesty and the truth that it has.
Did you work with him on set? Were you on set for the majority of the shooting?
Mm-hmm. I was on set with him. Yeah.
No, sorry, go ahead.
I have no idea what I was going to say.
And
no, he was there every day. I mean, we would, you know, we worked for a year before, you know, helping craft the script, and then doing the whole shooting, and then post-production, he would come in the cutting room. I mean, we went through it together. There's no question.
I have to ask, you know, you said it's the most.
Yeah, that boy seems a little antisocial too. And I think that probably played into his, like, maybe he had a bit of an inferiority complex about himself because he seems very introverted, right? And if you're trying to be a film director, if you look at how Rob Reiner is talking versus how the son is talking, Rob Reiner speaks with more confidence. He's more clear. He knows what he wants to say. He's more thought out. Whereas the son is like, and like, you know what I'm saying? Just a total liberal, typical liberal, antisocial cuck. And I bet you he's probably the biggest tough guy behind the computer, behind the keyboard, though. You know what I'm saying? And this guy, Nick, is your typical millennial liberal that's completely brainwashed by mainstream media, completely consumed with hate, never really addressed his childhood trauma. And eventually, at some point, when the pressures of life get to him, he's going to lash out. And guess what? He lashed out. And you know what's funny? If I would have seen this interview before the murders happened, I wouldn't be too surprised that it would have led to that at some point, because the two of them seem like night and day. Like, the boy he doesn't even look like him. He looks more like the mom. But I think there was some deep-seated hatred and resentment towards the dad because he had a better relationship with the other son, with the brother. That's what I think happened. And another thing too is, like, with these liberal males, I'm pretty sure in the household, the wife ran everything. So the mother was in charge of everything. And Rob Reiner was like a yes, dear kind of guy, because that's how most typical liberal marriages are. I know plenty of them. I have plenty of them in my family, right? My parents were a liberal married family like that, right? But when it comes to the kids, then Rob Reiner puts his foot down and he's the leader and takes charge and so on. And that kind of creates a problem too, because the kids would see the father submitting to the mother, but then being dominant towards them, which is confusing because as a kid, your father is supposed to be the dominant figure. So you see him in a leadership position with the mom. So it's very easy for you to fall in line with his leadership as a kid. But if you see him being subservient to the mom and then he comes to you and tries to lead you, there's going to be some pushback. There's going to be some rebellion because the kids are going to be confused. They're going to be like, you're not my dad. Who the hell are you? And that leads to all kinds of things depending on the child and how tough they are and how much they internalize that type of shit. But again, for a spoiled rich kid with nothing else, nothing really survival wise to worry about, these are the types of things, these are the types of thoughts that would consume his mind. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, I believe that this is what led to what happened. That boy looked like a serial killer.
Personal project that you've ever been a part of. And I think when people watch an hour and a half movie, they can sort of feel the personal aspect from the filmmakers or that it's a personal project. But as a filmmaker, as you said, it takes a year, it takes 2 years. There are certain objective things that you have to do as a filmmaker that completely remove the personal. And most of filmmaking can be that part of the job. How do you remain personally attached to the project? How do you maintain that sort of little personal spot in your brain when there are so many decisions and so many things you have to do on a day-to-day basis in a project like this that are not personal?
Well, I mean, you do have the craft of being a filmmaker, so you do. There are certain grammatic, there's certain film grammar that you're going to use to tell a story. But I could never get away from the fact that it's personal because we're doing it together. Every time I look over, that's my son, there's my boy. And so that never goes away, no matter, whatever craft I have, it's always there.
Nick, how involved were you with the casting and everything? I mean, this kid is amazing in the film. He's an incredible lead. I've never seen him.
People know Nick
before.
Robertson.
He was given good.
Yeah, he's a really good actor. I mean, he was in that Kings of Summer and he's in Jurassic World. He's a great actor. And Nick was there for all the casting. All of the auditions.
I was sitting there, but
yeah, but you always gave your opinion.
I was like, I saw that girl Morgan Saylor on Homeland, and I think during the season she like went to rehab or something, and I was just like, oh, she's a perfect rehab girl.
Yeah,
that was the only.
He pushed for Morgan Saylor like crazy.
Yeah. You had a personal.
Yeah, he kind of looks. The son kind of starts. He's starting to look annoyed now because it seems like the dad is getting more attention than him. Watch. Hold on, let me see if I can.
To her right away.
No, but
you see when the dad laughed, like he looked annoyed, like his dad is over talking him and shit, not giving him his shine. Watch.
Just felt like you knew her.
Felt like I knew her from some land.
Yeah. No. And this kid is. I mean, he carries the movie in many ways. He's in every scene of the film, and he's fantastic. How do you know when you're casting someone that they're going to be able to do that? After this long, you've worked with some of the biggest actors of all time, but you're casting a relatively unknown kid to carry the weight of a movie like this. How did you know that he was up to the task?
Well, you start with having an idea of who the character is. And in this case, even though it's not Nick, it's certainly an extension of him in certain ways. I have that in the back of my head. I'm looking at an actor and I want to see if he has the qualities, some of the qualities that I see in Nick in terms of his honor.
Kid, when he first showed up, he had like a book about junkies. He had like watched. Right. And another thing, other than casting, we all stayed at a hotel.
Guy that plays his friend in Forever, and I said, "Ooh, that's what it needs to be. It needs to feel like that."
Damn, I lost.
And another thing, other than casting, we all stayed at a hotel, the Hyatt House, at this, and we all hung out after every day. And that kid, when he first showed up, he had like a book about junkies.
That's not
auditions. And in the case of,
damn it, man, I think I lost it.
It was like as if they had known.
And another thing, other than casting, I got our sensibilities. So did Devin from just hanging out with us.
Well, there was one spot I was trying to find where the son was actually in the middle of saying something, and Rob Reiner cut him off, and the son gave a look, like he turned real quick, and he gave like this evil eye to his dad for like a split second. But I caught it though. I caught it. And I wanted you guys to see it, but I can't find it.
Try to help him with that in that sense.
Yeah, absolutely. The father in this is a former Hollywood actor, now turned politician. So he's got one foot in Hollywood and one foot in politics. This seems like as this character, as Charlie was an extension of Nick, this seems like this character could be an extension of you, Rob. As you sort of
well, that was the idea. That was the idea that I wanted to portray a character that was somewhat like me. I mean, it's not exactly like me because hopefully I'm not that big an asshole. But we wanted to have an antagonist, and we wanted to have there to be conflict between the father and son. And the fact that Carrie Elwes, who was in Princess Bride, did this part, I felt really good because I had kept in touch with him over the years and always looked for something to do with him, and I just felt comfortable.
Yeah, DC Legendary. Yeah, he didn't have much. He didn't get a lot of attention as a kid, and he has little to no. He had little to no social life, right? Because again, he was one of those. He was one of those sheltered elitist kids. All he had was nannies and trainers and instructors, but not much contact with kids. Like, look at this kid. He looks lost. Look at him. This guy looks fucking lost. Like he looks like he's a 32-year-old man, but he looks like he's got the mind of like a 15-year-old. Like he got stuck in his teenage years. Let's see. Legendary director Robert France after death in LA home. Son eyed by police. Okay, let's see this, because this should be some more up-to-date news. God, I hate these commercials because they always miss, and the shots be so easy. Miss. Oh, they might hit this. Oh, shit, they actually hit. I'm sorry, I could have been skipped this. I just wanted to see if they were going to hit or not. All right, here we go.
Legendary Hollywood director Rob Reiner and his longtime wife Michelle Singer Reiner were found stabbed to death inside their Brentwood home, and police were called to the residence on Sunday afternoon following reports of an ambulance death investigation. According to law enforcement sources, officers discovered a man and a woman with stab wounds inside the home. The Los Angeles Fire Department confirmed that a 78-year-old man and a 68-year-old woman were found dead at the scene. Authorities and sources later confirmed the victims were Rob Reiner and his wife Michelle Reiner, who had been married since 1989. Investigators are now eyeing the couple's 32-year-old adult son, screenwriter Nick Reiner, as a person of interest in the deadly stabbing.
That boy can't even smile. Look at that shit. They should have known. They should have known. Like, I'm looking at this kid and I'm seeing all the signs. Like, come on.
Person of interest in the deadly stabbing. At this stage, police have not announced any arrests or formally named a suspect. Sources say a knife is believed to have been used in the attack. Detectives from the LAPD's Robbery Homicide Division, a unit that handles high-profile cases across the city, were seen entering and exiting the home as the investigation continued. The street outside the residence was blocked off as officers secured the area. According to the New York Post, there was a man at the scene, identifying himself as Rocco, who said he was Reiner's assistant. He reportedly offered help to officers attempting to access the home. The Reiner residence, located in the upscale Brentwood neighborhood, was decorated with holiday decor and surrounded by tall hedges and gates. Nick Reiner has previously spoken publicly about his struggles with drug addiction and homelessness. In a 2016 interview, he said,
I was homeless in Maine. I was homeless in New Jersey. I was homeless in Texas. I spent nights on the street. I spent weeks on the street. It was not fun.
Did not know that about the kid. So he was one of those, again, spoiled rich white kids that didn't want to play by the rules, and his dad probably told him, you keep doing that dope, you can't stay here. Or maybe he went out of state to try to make his dreams come true and got on the dope and fucked himself up. You know what I mean? But that's pretty interesting because we see that a lot too in these wealthy families where there's an outcast. So now we got him not having a proper bond with his dad from childhood because the dad and the brother got along better or whatever. And then now you got him strung out on the dope and being homeless while his dad and his brother and his mother and everybody gets to live in the big mansions and be warm and cozy while he's sleeping on the street. So yeah, I can see the resentment. Like I can see the resentment.
Rob Reiner, 78, was one of Hollywood's most influential filmmakers, best known for directing iconic films such as When Harry Met Sally, The Princess Bride, This Is Spinal Tap, and A Few Good Men. He also rose to fame as an actor, playing Mike Meathead Stivic on the CBS sitcom All in the Family, a role that earned him 2 Emmy Awards. Reiner was previously married to actress Penny Marshall from 1971 to 1981. He later married Michelle in 1989, and the couple remained together for more than 3 decades. But as news of the deaths spread, social media platform X was flooded with posts drawing political comparisons, including references to the assassination of Charlie Kirk and Reiner's anti-Trump political views. Some users circulated an old interview clip in which Reiner condemned political violence.
That should never happen to anybody. I don't care about your political beliefs. It's not acceptable.
You see how they try to spin that to make it sound like that was him condemning political violence? No, that was specifically meant to condemn the Charlie Kirk shooting. That's what it was. I've never seen him actually condemn political violence as a whole.
Other users pushed back against political interpretations, criticizing what they described as performative reactions online. Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass issued a statement mourning Reiner's death and highlighting his legacy.
This is a devastating loss for our city and our country. Rob Reiner's contributions reverberate throughout American culture and society.
She added that Reiner and his wife were champions of early childhood development, marriage equality, and LGBTQ rights. As detectives continue to piece together what happened inside the Brentwood home, authorities have emphasized that the investigation remains ongoing. No official cause, motive, or suspect has been publicly confirmed at this time.
Sorry, I was munching. Now here's the thing, too. There's a possibility that this whole Rob Reiner death thing could be completely staged and they're not dead, but they're either on the run or they've been picked up already by military authorities. And okay, so this is more to the story about him having an argument or whatnot.
Subaru is proud to be the...
But let me just say this. A lot of times these Hollywood celebrities, they would sell their kids and pimp their kids out to, other pedophiles and let the pedophiles, rape the kids. A lot of child stars have, expressed these things. Corey Feldman and Macaulay Culkin and so on. Or how about the girls that R. Kelly was seeing whose parents were taking money from R. Kelly to let them see their kids? There was rumors that Joe Jackson did that to Michael Jackson, pimped them out to certain record label executives so they can get the #1 spot. I don't know how true that is, but considering what we've researched and what we know, I don't put that past anybody. And the fact that the son that committed the murders seemed very antisocial, had, been feeling alienated his whole childhood, there's a good possibility that, he might have been pimped out himself. And that could have been what led to the drugs. That could have been what led to the murder. That could have been what led to his antisocial behavior, because the way he was communicating and conducting himself in that interview, there's definitely something wrong with that kid. And if it has to do with feeling alienated from his father and feeling like his father has a better bond with his brother, that feeling would have had to have been to the extreme as a kid to have such lasting effects on him to where he's so fucked up you can physically see it on him, right? So that's one possibility. But if it's the case where he was pimped out by his parents as a kid so they can get ahead in the industry, well, that would also explain the drug habit, the antisocial and erratic behavior, because he spent his childhood dealing with something that no child should ever have to deal with. And again, these being Hollywood celebrities, you can't really put it past them.
His wife, Michelle, were found dead in their home. LA police have arrested one of the couple's sons in connection with the killings. Our chief correspondent, Jonathan Hunt, is live out of Brentwood for us. He's got more on all of this. Jonathan, what more can you tell us?
Well, Sandra, within hours of the bodies of Rob Reiner and his wife, Michelle, being discovered here at their Brentwood home, we were getting word of the potential involvement of their 32-year-old son, Nick Reiner. And this morning, we got confirmation that he has indeed been arrested in the early hours of this morning, we believe, and is being held on $4 million bond. You can see Nick Reiner in this family photo that was just taken a few months ago in September. He is the young man with the shaved head in that picture. Now, the LAPD said very little yesterday as they began their investigation, but the police chief confirmed this morning that Nick Reiner had indeed been arrested. Listen here.
We have our robbery homicide division handling the investigation. They worked throughout the night on this case and were able to take into custody Nick Reiner, a suspect in this case. He was subsequently booked for murder and is being held on $4 million bail.
Now, police were initially called out to this Brentwood home at around 3:40 yesterday. As we understand it, one of the couple's daughters discovered their parents here, and it was a pretty grisly scene as we understand it. Both apparently stabbed to death. Now, Rob Reiner, of course, was a beloved figure in Hollywood, famed for a whole string of hit movies, including Sleepless, including When Harry Met Sally, The Princess Bride, and, of course, A Few Good Men. He's been paid tribute to by a slew of political and Hollywood figures, thanks to his activism as well. Maria Shriver, the journalist and former First Lady of California, saying, quote, "I'm devastated, gutted, shocked, stunned, and so deeply saddened, as are all of the people who loved them and who they loved. I hope people remember them as two deeply talented, kind, fun, loving, good, patriotic people who loved each other deeply." And Sandra, our corporate cousins at TMZ are reporting that Rob and Michelle Reiner, along with their son Nick, attended a holiday party at the home of Conan O'Brien on Saturday night, and that the three of them were heard arguing very loudly. Now, if that plays in any way to the tragic events that unfolded here on Sunday afternoon, we do not know at this point. We hope that we will hear more from the Los Angeles Police Department later today. Sandra?
Wow. Jonathan Hunt with the very latest on all of that for us. Thank you, John.
All right, Sandra, let's bring in Mary Ellen O'Toole, former FBI special agent and profiler. You know, when we first heard of the deaths, we thought, oh my God, was it a robbery? Was it some sort of break and enter? And then to hear that the son, Neil, is the suspect in this horrific murder just defies all logic, at least as far as we can see from the outside. What are you thinking about all this?
Think safety. Think Granger.
suggests that who's ever responsible, and that neighborhood has a low crime rate compared to certainly other areas of. You look at the victimology and you look at the neighborhood, and I think it was almost immediately reported that there was no forced entry and there was no forced exit. And that neighborhood has a low crime rate compared to certainly other areas of Los Angeles. So when you see even those two factors, it certainly can suggest that who's ever responsible had access to that house or was voluntarily allowed into that home by one of the victims. So that's the first thing that struck me.
You know, TMZ, which is one of the Fox Corporation properties, was reporting that their throats were cut. You know, killing someone with a gun is one thing. I mean, you can do it at a distance, but when you kill someone with a knife, whether you stab them or you cut their throats or whatever, that is just such an up close and personal way to murder somebody. What does that tell you as a profiler?
It is. It's also a way to make sure that as the offender, that there's so much blood that's being produced from the injuries. It's very likely that your hand slipped down over the blade. And you cut yourself, which means that you deposited your own blood at the crime scene. It also suggests that there was a fight because there would have been defensive injuries, more than likely, on both victims, again, causing the offender to leave his own blood, his own DNA at the crime scene. And that was immediately probably noticed by the homicide detectives that went there. And you also had family members who lived close by who were also providing information to the police so that they had reported information, and they probably also had that forensic information. And when they approached the son, he probably had injuries on him. So all of that collectively came together pretty quickly.
I mean, to stab your parents, if he indeed is the assailant, this is the way it happened, to stab your parents to death requires such a fit of rage, I would imagine, that it's something that would have to have built up over time. And as Jonathan Hunt reported just a moment ago, TMZ is saying that the three of them, Michelle and Rob and Nick, were at a party at Conan O'Brien's house, a holiday party the night before, and were heard engaged in a very loud argument. That would seem to suggest, Mary Ellen, that there was some bad blood that was brewing over some time.
I think you're right, and that's probably going to come out in the next couple of days. This doesn't just start the day before yesterday. So there was ongoing issues between them. And when I've seen cases like this in the past, oftentimes the family underestimates the potential of their loved one in terms of what they could do to them. But I think we're going to see the patterns begin to come to the surface over time, because that is a lot of anger. That's a lot of rage. It doesn't just start on the night of the attack.
Yeah, I mean, who knows how long it's been going on. I also want to ask you quickly, Mary Ellen, about this attack that was foiled. It was a plot that was targeting Los Angeles on New Year's Eve. 5 people arrested. Apparently, there was another person who was arrested in New Orleans in an associated plot. This is what Bill Asaley, the U.S. attorney, said.
The defendants are all radical anti-government members of the Turtle Island Liberation Front, which, according to their own social media, is an anti-capitalist, anti-government movement that calls for their associates to rise up and fight back against capitalism. One of the leaders of the organization, defendant Audrey Carroll, helped organize an even more radical faction of the group called the Order of the Black Lotus.
Yeah, we should say 4 people arrested in Los Angeles, a 5th in New Orleans. What are you thinking about this group?
Well, here's the issue when you have multiple people, especially when you have younger people that will rely on social media, even though they think it's secure. People talk to one another, and people then go forward and they tell other people about it. And that's one of the contributors, I think, to what happened here. Now, the thing is, they just didn't talk about it, though. They actually engaged in actions which told the FBI and law enforcement that they were serious about carrying out these their efforts. So I think that's the point where the FBI, we're used to hearing a lot of things on the internet, but when we start seeing actions to indicate I'm really going to do this, that escalates it. But again, 4 people together, it's very difficult to keep a secret.
Yeah, 3 women and a man. That would seem to harken back to the days of the 1960s and 70s radical groups. Mary Ellen, thanks for joining us. Thanks for your expertise. Appreciate it.
All right. So there's a little more insight into the situation. So the argument happened at Conan O'Brien's party, and well, it was a fight that happened, and he deleted them. That is just swell. So based on what we know now, first of all, let me just start by saying this. Based on what we know, assuming that what they're reporting on the news is what actually happened, and it wasn't a case where this is the cover story for them actually being rendered to a military black site. Okay, let's assume that this is the case and this really happened. That kid had some serious issues. And they could have stemmed from anything from feeling, again, alienated, not getting enough attention as a child. And now he's got all this pressure put on him to be a film director like his dad. Or it could have been worse, where, you know, he's in Hollywood. He was a kid. So God knows what could have happened to him as a kid, whether his parents pimped him out or, you know, they brought somebody around that molested him or whatnot. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it could have been anything that sent him, that drove him to this point. And that argument, you know, the passion behind, I guess the passion he had in that argument led to him committing murder. So, in now understanding and getting more of the details, right? I'm starting to look at it more of because them being liberals in the first place was the problem, was the root problem to begin with, right? The mentality is all screwed up. The role that the father plays versus the mother plays in the child's life is all screwed up to begin with because they're liberals, so they don't have any real order in their house. And you know, I'm starting to feel, you know, kind of feel for the dude a little bit, because what would drive, because here's the thing, when we hear stories about men flipping out and killing their wives and shit, everybody just says, oh, he was a monster and this and that, but nobody ever stops to think like, well, what drove him to that point? Because maybe we can save other men from themselves from reaching that point if we can just understand what drove him to that point. And people get mad at me for saying that and think I'm defending a murderer and all this shit. But I'm like, no, you're humanizing a murderer. Like, well, didn't they humanize Jeffrey Dahmer when they made a goddamn movie about him? Don't the homicide detectives humanize the homicide suspect when they say, hey, tell me what happened? What made you do this? What got you to that point? Because in understanding what gets people to the point of where they kill their damn parents, I think it's pretty important to understand. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but that's what I think. Because perhaps we can prevent other children from growing up damaged like this dude and killing their parents. Or at the very least, we can avoid the mistakes that Rob Reiner and his wife made as parents with our own kids, and maybe our kids won't grow up and freaking stab us to death, slit our fucking throats. Just saying. Because when a woman kills her husband, it's always what made her do it, this and that. But men don't tend to get that kind of grace. But I like to look at things from both angles because both people are human. It's not like the man is a machine and he just malfunctioned and turned into a monster, and the woman is a human and deserves to be understood. Both people are human, so both people deserve to be understood, because in understanding them, it will help us understand others who may go down that same path. So we would literally be engaging in the act of saving lives, so to speak. Right, T. Wriggles. Why was he homeless? If I had my guess, I would say he was homeless because he was on that dope and his dad wasn't having it, and he either kicked him out, or he was on that dope and decided he was going to go to these other states to try to chase his dreams. But because he grew up sheltered and never learned the value of hard work, because most spoiled children don't, he didn't know how to sustain himself. So he ended up homeless and was probably too embarrassed and too ashamed to ask his parents for help, because he probably left on some cocky shit like, I can do it myself. I don't need you. You know, that type of shit, because that's what the dope do to you. The dope blinds you to what's important and what you should actually be appreciative of. And all you want is the dope and the freedom to do your dope. That's it. You don't care about nothing else. But it's that dope that got him homeless. But yeah, he was like, I guess he was like the prodigal son, you know. He thought he could do it on his own, so he took his money and bounced and blew his money, because again, that's what that dope do, and ended up on the street and was too embarrassed to ask for, ask for help. Because he's still a man at the end of the day. Right, Zarada. Zarada hit the nail on the head. She says boys and young men aren't socialized to open up about their feelings to anyone. Right, because when they open up to other boys, or when young men open up to other young men, they get laughed at and they get clowned and they get called soft and sensitive and shit. And then when they open up to women, it gets weaponized and used against them in some way, shape, or form. So it doesn't serve young men to be vulnerable, and that's the way society teaches us to be. So we internalize all that shit. And the danger of internalizing all that shit is when the pressures of life start to get to you and those feelings start to come out. You know what I'm saying? That shit, it all comes out. It's like the dam gets breached and everything just comes rushing out however it comes out. Whether it be harsh words, whether it be violence, whether it be murder, whatever the case may be. And as men, that's where we fail each other. Because we don't make safe spaces for each other to get that shit off your chest. So it just piles up and it bottles up and it bottles up. And every man's got some shit on his chest. So it would actually serve everybody in that group. You know what I'm saying? If they were to group together and start a support group of some sorts like that, it would serve everybody, because everybody now has a chance to get it off their chest. But another thing that I noticed with, dealing with the brothers and shit, it's like, whatever problem you have, a lot of times they can come up with a problem they have that's worse than yours. Right? So it's like you come to your brother like, yo, bro, man, I don't like how this shit's going with me and my mom, man. Like, she just won't apologize and this and that. And then that motherfucker respond and say, well, I wish I had a mom to talk to, because his mom done died and shit. So he feels the need to remind you, so you don't really get the acknowledgement that you're looking for a lot of times, because no man does. So it's hard for us to even acknowledge each other. Yeah, our emotions are used against us. We're forced to keep our emotions in, bottle it all up, and then when it finally comes out, because we're only human, we can't keep it together forever. When it finally comes out, we're the bad guy. Yeah, I hate that fucking statement. Be a man. I hate that statement. I hate, especially when I hear a man say that to another man. Like, there is no reason for a grown man to say that to another man, unless it's a trans man and he's telling them stop being a woman. Because it's just plain old disrespect. Because to look a grown man in his face and tell him be a man, that's automatically implying that the man you're looking at is something less than a man. Excuse me. So when a grown man tells another grown man to be a man, He's essentially telling that grown man, you're less than a man. That's what he's telling him. And that usually gets told to men who dare to speak about their feelings. So now you're less than a man for speaking about your feelings. So you can never get that human acknowledgement of, I understand how you feel, man. It's going to get better. You never get that encouraging word. All you get told is you're weak for having feelings. You're less than a man for daring to express your feelings. And that shit is toxic. And that's why most men nowadays don't want to have relationships and don't want to be close to people because it doesn't really serve us the way them being close to us would serve them. You ever been that homeboy that had everything to borrow but couldn't borrow a fucking thing from none of your friends? You're there to serve them. And they don't even serve you in the sense that this is somebody I can talk to. And that happens a lot amongst men, and we got to stop doing that shit to each other. Because at the end of the day, it's us against the world. And in a lot of cases, it's us against our own women. Fuck the white man. You know, if you ever had baby mama drama, that was you against your woman. Because at one point in time, she was your woman. That shit happens every day. Yeah, suck it up is another one. Yeah, suck it up. Yeah, but you can only suck up so much until it either explodes or it comes leaking out. Do you know comedians, like some of the funniest people in the world are actually the most depressed people in the world? Did you know that? The greatest comedians that you could think of are some of the most depressed men. That's why there's so many comedians that committed suicide. Because that's how they deal with their pain and they internalize their pain. They make jokes about it and they laugh at themselves because they know if they were to be real and say it for real, the world would laugh at them. And this is no disrespect to the ladies that are watching me right now, but it's just the way society is. There's that double standard there. And that double standard has become so apparent to me that I've kind of found myself jaded in a lot of cases because just like everybody else, whenever I'd hear a story about a man killing a woman or killing his wife or some shit or killing his ex-wife or some shit, like I used to be outraged just like everybody else. Like he's a monster and feel bad. Now I don't feel bad. Now my first thought is, what does she do to drive that man to do that? And in a lot of those cases, when you look at the facts of the case, it was some life-altering shit that these women were doing to these men, some torturous shit. And they wouldn't stop. And the man got to the point where he lost it. You can't call the police and stop her because the police can't do nothing. You can't go to the courts because the courts ain't going to do nothing. At least not for a year or two. So what do you do in the meantime? You suck it up. You be a man. And yeah, some men do it. Some men go through it. When I was alienated from Anthony, I went a whole year without seeing him. The first year of his life, missed his first birthday, Thanksgiving, Christmas, all of that shit. And still barely get time with him. And he's 6 now. So I was able to endure it, but not every man is that strong. And some men crack and break under that pressure. But when you look at their lives before that pressure, they were just normal working dudes. And then they get involved with this woman and she starts doing all kinds of fucking nasty shit to him. And then he flips out and kills her. That's usually what happens. But nobody ever stops to think like, and this puts women in danger too. because everybody is so busy calling the man a monster. Nobody ever stops to think, like, what did this woman do to bring that monster out of this man? What could she have possibly done? And because that's the part of the conversation that nobody wants to talk about, other women do it. And they push their men to the breaking point. And then they end up falling victim too. But if it was a normal part of the conversation to say, you know what, she was alienating him from his kids, she was cheating on him with his homeboys, all kinds of shit, then other women out there who might have the inclination to want to do that, they'll have these cases to reference, like, you know what, let me not keep pushing that man because he might flip out and kill me one day. And you know what that makes for? A better world. This is why an armed society is a polite society. It's the same concept. There's that underlying fear of violence because you know violence is possible. And what you would have to do to provoke that violence. So now you have a clear path as to how to avoid that violence. Be careful how you treat people. Be careful how you deal with people. Be careful what you say to them, because you don't know how they're going to react to it. And again, when it comes to men killing women, what they call femicide or whatever the hell it is, if that was a part of the conversation, there would be a lot more women alive today that didn't fall victim because they would have known better than to try that shit with that particular man because that man couldn't handle it. And yes, they're murderers and they deserve to be in jail. Because no matter what somebody does to you, unless they're actively trying to take your life, there's no reason to take their life. But at the same time, again, not everybody can deal with that mental torture. Not everybody is that strong. Not every man was raised to be that strong. Not every man can endure that kind of shit. And men take a lot of shit. So when it comes to this boy killing his parents, it's the same thing. Something was wrong with him. And when he got in that argument with his father, I guarantee you his father and his mother said some shit to him. And he was like, I'm about to slit these motherfuckers' throats. And he went ahead and did just that. Like, when it comes to the men killing the women, right? There's this thing where it's almost like become like a running joke. Because for a while there was the divester community with these black women that say they don't date black men and they all date white men and whatever. And then then we started seeing this string of news reports of these white men killing their black girlfriends. And it's kind of become a running joke in the red pill spaces, right? Like every time a black woman says, that's why I don't date black men, I only date white men. And then the response would be like, yeah, that's why they kill y'all ass, you know? But as a black man who has dated exclusively black women throughout my life, I understand why those white men get pushed to that limit, because sometimes our women could be a lot to deal. I just got done telling you about what I went through with Anthony. And kind of still going through with Anthony, even though it's gotten a lot better, like light years better. You know what I'm saying? But for black men, when it comes to dealing with black women and the shit they do to push our buttons, like we can endure that, because for a lot of us, we've seen our mothers do that shit. We've seen our sisters do it. So it's something that's familiar to us. But then you take somebody that's out from outside of that group where that's not an ingrained part of the culture, and you start treating that man like that, he might not be able to take that shit and he's going to lose it and kill your ass. Which again goes back to understanding the nature of the beast and understanding who you're dealing with and how to deal with them. And by understanding the nature of the beast, that means understanding what was done to drive that individual to commit that violent act, so it could be avoided in the future. Because here's the thing, you got to look at it like this. What's better? To have that man lose his mind and kill his parents and then lock him up for it? Or figure out what drove the Menendez brothers or whoever else that killed their parents to kill their parents and look for those signs in him and try to address it? So what's more beneficial to society? To look to examine previous cases of the same type of violence and try to prevent that violence in every possible case where those same traumas might be present, or allow the traumas to lead to violence and then just lock the person up? What's more beneficial to society? Saving the life or letting the lives be lost and then locking up the person that took them? And just by watching that interview, even before this murder would have happened, if I would have saw that interview with Rob Reiner's son, I would have known that kid was screwed in the head from the beginning. I think anybody would have been able to see that. It wasn't hard to see. And when this murder happened, I wouldn't have been surprised. And Trump sure as hell doesn't seem surprised. And when he mentioned that it was Trump derangement syndrome that caused Rob Reiner's death, I think what he was hinting at was this excessive hatred that's being spewed in the household. You bring in that spirit of hate into your place of peace. You're bringing that spirit of turmoil and frustration into your place of peace. And when you invite those demons in, those demons they'll wreak havoc. They will inhabit whoever they need to inhabit to make your life hell or eventually send you to hell. That's how the spirituality of it works. That's why even in the Bible it says love your enemies, because when you're in your home, in your place of peace, you want everything to be done out of love. You want love to be the driving force, not hate. Because even when you're at home, your enemies are still your enemies. So you walk in love. But when you hate your enemies, you're going to walk in hate. And you're going to walk that hatred right into your own household. Then your kids are going to start to hate you. Then your spouse is going to hate you. You might even start hating yourself. And I ain't going to lie to you. I've done it to myself where I've hated liberals and Democrats for a long time. I hated feminists. I hated all of that shit. And I brought that hatred into my household because I carried that hate with me. I hated my baby mamas for the shit they did with my kids. And I brought that hate into my household and it's wreaked havoc in my life. And I had to reach a point where I got to let this hatred go. I got to let this shit go. And walk in love. Do everything out of love. Because I want to maintain my place of peace. I don't want there to be hate. Because hate leads to death. And that's what happened to Rob Reiner's house. That's you see them in the interview talking about Trump, right? I hate that man. And I've never hated a politician, but I hate Trump. Yeah, they genuinely do hate Trump because he fucked up their money. He fucked up their markets. He took away their influence. He exposed their propaganda. And that's what happens to these liberals a lot of times. They're so consumed with hate. And that's what Trump was talking about with the TDS. It was a spiritual thing because Trump derangement syndrome basically describes a condition where a person cannot be objective when it comes to Trump and American politics. And they always have to come from a place of hate because they genuinely hate Donald Trump for whatever reason, because the TV said so. And that spirit of hate brings real wickedness on you. It brings real evil on you. And for Rob Reiner, may he rest in peace, but the chickens came home to roost. That hatred came right back at him. All that hatred he had for Trump, little did he know his son had that same amount of hatred for him. And look how it ended. And it's fucked up. It's fucked up because people don't really understand the types of evil that they're invoking when they spew out hate, when they openly declare hate. They don't realize that shit. They don't realize the curses that they're bringing on themselves. And it's quite obvious that that dude hated his parents. He hated his parents. Because to murder your parents is an act of hatred. And you have to hate them to not only stab them to death, but slit their throats. That was crazy to hear. I didn't even know it was that deep. That's why I was playing all the videos for y'all, because I didn't know he slit their throats. What's his name? Nick Reiner? Yeah, that dude definitely looks like something's wrong with him for sure. Faux show. Images. Oh, he's a leg crosser. Oh, no. Oh, no. He's a leg crosser, y'all. Damn. Damn. Y'all got to see this. Oh, my goodness. This is so sad. Like, the more I dig into this, is the worse it gets. Look at this shit. The boy's a leg crosser. He's a whole leg crosser. I don't know how to make this bigger. But you can see it right there. You see him with his legs crossed. Look at the smile. Dude don't even know how to smile. I guess that's him right there with the Nike hat on. Yeah, he looks whacked out of his mind. I guess those are the other two kids. Okay, that's the whole 5. That's the whole bunch right there. That's all 5 of them. Yeah, this son looks, he looks more successful and well put together. And of course, the daughter is going to be the daughter. She'll always get the special treatment from dad. And well, there's Nick. Damn. Yeah, something's definitely up with him. Oh shit, that's him again? He looks crazy. Wrist broke. Yeah. Yeah, something was up with that kid. So that is Nick. Okay, so that's Nick. Yeah, he looks He looks crazy. What is that? A Kanye West sweatsuit he's wearing? Looking nutty. Yeah, Zarata, he looks cooked. She says, look at his eyes. He's through. Yeah, he's cooked. Like, he just gave up on life, man. God damn. God damn. Let me see something, because I want to see something else. Maybe he was, if I had my guess, he was the middle child. Let's see what his age is. Okay, he's 32. Okay. Rob Reiner. Kids' ages. I don't know why I put a space there. All right. Okay. Jake Reiner, 34. Nick is 32. And Romy is 28. So Nick was the middle child. I was right. And you know how I knew that? You guys really want me to tell you how I knew that? I'll tell you exactly how I knew that, because I'm the middle child. And I know what it's like being the middle child. The oldest gets all the attention because they're the first one. The youngest gets all the attention because they're the baby. The middle child tends to get left on his own and left to his own devices to figure it the fuck out. That's how I knew he was the middle child. Because Nick Reiner has taken a walk down the dark side. And I'll tell you, I've spent many years of my adult life on the dark side too. I just never murdered anybody. But I know how overwhelming those feelings can be. Yeah, the middle child always gets it the worst. The only time that the youngest child gets the middle child treatment is when all the other kids are significantly older and the youngest child is the baby. Because what happens is the older kids now, the parents don't really pay attention to the baby because the older kids always pay attention to the baby. But when they're that close in age, a 6-year span, they're all growing up at the same time. They're all kids at the same time. They all become adults one after another. He had that middle child syndrome, but he had it to the extreme. D. Allen says, not fair, Citizen Man. It was 10 of us brothers and sisters. Yeah, it was 10 of y'all. Where did you fall on that spectrum, D. Allen? Were you the youngest, the oldest, or somewhere in the middle? Because if you were the youngest, then you know what I mean about the youngest being, getting less attention from the parents, because the older kids tend to raise the youngest when it's such a large bunch. My parents, my dad's family so you're in the middle. So you know that middle child syndrome. In my dad's family, they had 7 kids, and that's kind of how it was for them. My grandparents had 7 kids. Zarata says, everyone was at least 6 to more years older than me. I was the baby. How was that growing up? I mean, not as a baby, but as a young child. Did most of your parental care come from your older siblings, or did it come from your parents directly? I'm talking about, 6, 7, 8 years old, elementary school age. You see, what happened with Rob Reiner and his wife? They failed as parents. And to have your own kid come back and murder you, that means you have failed monumentally as parents. Because this is a kid that you laid down and you had. Yes, my sister acted like my mom and she hated my guts. Yeah, that's usually how it goes. That's usually how it goes. But they failed as parents. They failed as parents. There's no other way to put it. You lay down, you had this kid, you raise this kid his whole life, and he grows up to end your life. You give this kid life, and he turns around and ends yours. You did something wrong, parents. So as parents, who I assume most of us are, or at least a fair amount of us are, let's not make this mistake, right? You give each of your kids their own time, their own attention. You do the things that they like to do and you bond with them, you know what I'm saying? And you build that relationship. So when life starts to hit them and they start going down the dark path and they start having dark thoughts, you don't become one of those dark thoughts. Because that's what got Nick Reiner to the point where he killed his parents. They became the source of his dark thoughts. And those dark thoughts consumed him to the point where he did some really dark shit. And the parents could have brought him back to the light, especially Rob Reiner, had he known. You know what I'm saying? So breaking news. Rob Reiner and his wife got stabbed to death, had their throat slits in their own home by their own son. Because they're liberals and they failed as parents. You see, a lot of times we think giving our kids everything and buying them all the fly shit is enough for them. And then we wonder why they turn out the way they turn out. And it's because they're lacking that love. They're looking for that love. You know, I talk about my brother and how he got into the street life around the age of 14 and 15. And that was because he felt like my dad didn't love him enough. He literally felt like my dad didn't want him. So he decided to take it upon himself to take care of himself. And that was the life he chose because he found that love and that camaraderie in the older guys that put him out on the block to flip them rocks. Then he took that shit and ran with it. And all of that could have been avoided had he gotten the love that he felt he needed from our dad. So, you know, how we treat our kids as children and young adults, they carry that shit well into their adulthood. And it affects them negatively. And we as parents are the only ones with the power to heal, to help them heal that hurt. We got the antidote. We just got to recognize the symptoms and know to give it to them and how to give it to them. Like Anthony, when I was playing one of them videos, his mom just called me on a video call because he didn't want to get in the shower. He didn't want to listen to shit she had to say. And guess why? Because I'm not there to lay down the law. And when I got on the phone, he ran for a while, like ran all through the house trying to get away from her so he doesn't have to face me. And why is it like that? Because his mom don't let me spend enough time with him. Because if she did, she wouldn't have that problem because he would be trained and he would understand that this is my parent and it's to my benefit to listen to my parent. But he doesn't have that authority figure consistently in his life. So now she's having to deal with the repercussions of that. And she's failing as a parent because she's not allowing me to be there as much as I should be. And I feel like I'm failing as a parent because I'm not able to be there as much as I should be. So there's going to come a time in my son's life where I'm going to have to sit him down and have that talk with him. Because that behavior is not going to correct itself. And there was a time when I hated her and I said, I hope he grows up and stabs her in her sleep. But I didn't mean that. I was angry and I take that back. But these types of things That's the way it can go. When you deprive a child of the love that they need, the necessary love that they need growing up, that void gets filled with hate. And that hate can metastasize into all manners of things. Self-destruction, suicide, drug addiction, murder. But as parents, we have the power to nip it in the bud. We just got to know how. And most parents don't know how. Because most parents don't even know how to apologize to their kids, because in their eyes, they didn't do shit wrong. And they forget to see it from their kids' perspective and say, you know what? If I was you, I would probably be upset by that too. Even though as the parent, I did what I thought was best, I can empathize with the fact that what I did hurt you, and I didn't mean to hurt you. Sometimes that's all the kid needs to hear. They need to hear that and know that you recognize that they have feelings too. And as parents, we tend not to do that because we're so caught up in our fucking feelings. And not only is that an exercise in accountability, but it's an exercise in emotional control where you can express your problems to somebody without berating them, without the hatred. So that way they can understand what the problem is and actually take real accountability. And I'm pretty sure that argument that they had before the murders happened, that's if I had my guess, and I'm just speculating, so don't quote me on this because nobody knows the nature of the actual conversation. But if I had my guess, I would probably assume that that conversation had something to do with that boy wanting accountability from his parents, and they decided to criticize him because he turned out to be a bum and a drug addict and all this shit. And he was like, you know what? I'm going to kill these motherfuckers. Aram Left says, I thought they was already dead. That might have been a different couple. That was Gene Hackman and his wife. That was Gene Hackman and his wife, and I don't think they ever figured out what happened to them. I think Gene died first of natural causes, and then the wife killed herself a few days later or something like that. But yeah, that was a few months ago. This guy, Rob Reiner, was a big Trump hater. Big Trump hater. Let me see something. Rob Reiner, border wall. Let's see what he said about the border wall. Was he one of those people saying the border wall is racist? See, every time I type in Rob Reiner, this is what it gives me. Just shit about his death. That's all they're giving us. Rob Reiner is Trump is mentally unfit to be U.S. president, Rob Reiner says. And this was 8 years ago. So he was already pushing the propaganda even back then. But he's Hollywood, so of course he's going to push the propaganda because that's what Hollywood does. Oh, shit. So this was the night before Conan O'Brien's party. So this clip wasn't. So maybe this clip was. Oh, shit. So the clip I just showed you guys with the interview with him acting weird, that was the night before. And then after that, they went to Conan O'Brien's party and they had that argument. Huh. Trump says Rob Reiner was killed for being anti-Trump. Yo, you leave it up to Trump, yo. But it was because they were hateful. They were hateful people. Yeah, everything about Rob Reiner is just all about the debts. Trump post shocking public response. They got a whole 60 minutes rewind. Rob Reiner talks about life after death in our final interview. Huh, that's kind of interesting. Yeah, but we're definitely going to take a walk on the deep end and see if if there's any evidence that may possibly suggest this was staged and that Rob Reiner faked his death. I'm trying to look through. Yeah, what I'm doing is I'm looking through the YouTube videos to see if I can find something, some comments that he made about the border wall back in 2018 or 2019. But it's not, as soon as you type in Rob Reiner, it's only giving you the deaf stuff. Son arrested, Trump faces backlash over this. Tim Pool. Rob Reiner on Trump. I don't think he can learn anything. Well, he can't learn nothing from you. I mean, you couldn't even raise your own son to not murder you. So, I mean, hey, you want to take it there and talk about learning, we could take it there. Yeah, so there ain't nothing on the border wall in here. This is all recent news, trending. Trump doubles down on criticism of deranged Rob Reiner. Brian Walsh guilty. Rob Reiner's son arrested in this. Okay. I don't know who Brian Walsh is. All right, so let me see. This is the last piece of the civil rights puzzle. I don't know what the hell. Rob Reiner and Joe Mandy on a fake Veep ad becoming reality. Director activist Rob Reiner calls for impeachment inquiry. Donald Trump. Okay. Can't really find nothing. Yeah, but he was just a big left-wing activist. Just running for president is not a reality show. Rob Reiner is truly a meathead, gets worked by Bill Maher over mainstream media. Okay. Yeah, nothing too interesting. Just a typical liberal leftist propaganda. Because that's what he was. He was just a propagandist. And that was his job, to spread the propaganda and, you know, put out, parrot the left-wing talking points and all that shit. And that's what he did. He did his job. He did his job. He played ball. He did his job. And his life has been tragically ended. So, guys, I guess I'm going to get up out of here. I just wanted to touch on this and give you guys something tonight because it's Monday. Not many people go live on Monday. So I figured, hey, if I go live, we can talk about something. And, well, what better than the breaking news of Rob Reiner and his wife being murdered by their own son? Let that be a lesson to you liberals. Stop raising your sons to be weak. Stop trying to be male feminists. Teach your sons how to express their emotions and regulate their emotions. Don't allow them to be overly emotional because they have to be able to express it. If you allow them to express it, they won't bottle it up and be overly over the top with it. And if you got a kid that's on drugs or acts weird, Spend some time with them and figure out what the hell is wrong with them. Figure out what their problem is and solve it. And if you're the problem, take accountability. That's the lesson to be learned here. So lesson number 1, don't be a liberal cuck. Lesson number 2, give your kids the love and the attention that they need so you don't end up failing as a parent. And lesson number 3, don't become so consumed with hatred that you bring that shit into your house. Because either you'll start hating the people in your house or the people in your house are going to start hating you. Take it from me. I'm living it right now. All right. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I guess I get up out of here. How long we been live? Let me see how long we've been live. I don't even know. Yeah, hour 45. That's pretty decent. That's pretty decent. Yeah, Sarah G. Sorry, Sarah G on YouTube says Rob Reiner must have been on Epstein's island. Yes, Rob Reiner is on Epstein's flight log going to the island. Yes, Rob Reiner has been to Epstein's island. And because he was part of the Hollywood elites, if he wasn't a pedophile himself, he was definitely running with them and down with them. And that's why I brought up the fact that that boy Nick could have been fucked up because, well, if they're pedophiles, then what do you think the people they hang around are going to be? So it's quite possible that he could have been touched. But y'all, I'm going to get up out of here, y'all. Appreciate y'all tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed the show, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.